Welcome back to my series on surviving narcissistic abuse. This video is going to be all about how narcissists can destroy lives. They are extremely toxic people. They're monsters, essentially. Their behavior should not be excused, allowed, or enabled. Narcissists are now, psychiatrists and psychologists consider them part of the cluster B psychological disorders, which they're grouped in now with psychopaths and sociopaths if it's a severe form of narcissism, which my uncle has. I mean, severe malignant narcissism, cluster B, total antisocial personality disorder. The common traits among them is no empathy for others and enjoying hurting others. So these people are toxic, don't put up with it. Unfortunately, in families, enablers do. I'm going to shoot a whole video on the mind of the enabler, why they are the way they are. But in this video, I want to talk about how toxic narcissistic abuse can ruin your life if you don't make an effort to, one, get away from the narcissist, and two, heal yourself. So it is possible. It's very challenging. This video is going to focus on what it's like to be a child and be exposed to a malignant narcissist. You will relate to it if you've been married to a narcissist or dated a narcissist. All of this information will apply if you were around the narcissist as an adult, but I want you to understand that as a child, when you're around them, it's the most damaging because children, their brains are like sponges. This is why good parents, a lot of them, if they can afford it, send their children to preschool. Because when you're really, really young, even before you start kindergarten, your brain is like a sponge. And if you start getting exposed to things like art and music and different languages when you're about 2 to 5 years old, that's when you're going to be able to pick those things up later in life. So that's why a lot of parents send their children to preschool or are very cautious about what their children are exposed to around those ages, because everything you absorb at those ages affects the rest of your life. When I was 3 years old, I had this imaginary friend who would come late at night and talk to me, and he was a man, and he told me that he hated children, and if he saw one, he would hurt one. So in this imaginary scenario, I didn't see myself as the child. I saw all my teddy bears and dolls as my children. So when he would come around, I would take all my dolls and all my teddy bears and shove them under the blankets and just be like, stay hidden, don't let him see you, and he won't hurt you. Just stay hidden. And then I would just listen to this imaginary friend, this older man, talk and talk and talk and talk and ramble. Again, 3 years old, okay? What 3-year-old comes up with an imaginary friend like this? And it took me years to figure out that this imaginary friend, when he would come to me, I was mirroring my mom's behavior. Because when my narcissistic uncle would show up, she would just listen to him talk and talk. I mean, God, he loved to listen to himself talk. And I, the child that he really wanted to hurt, had to just stay hidden, stay quiet, stay completely invisible so he wouldn't hurt me. So this is how my 3-year-old brain processed my family dynamic. Created an evil imaginary friend who would come to me at night, who told me he hated children. If he saw one, he would hurt one. And this was an exact mirror of what my mom did with my uncle. But then one day I decided I did not want to deal with this imaginary friend anymore. So I got all my teddy bears and I lined them up on my bed in a row, kind of like in a front line of a war. And he came and I said, these are my children and I love them and you need to leave. And he did, and he never came back. And that was the end of that imaginary friend. But yeah, that was my 3-year-old brain processing how my mom handled the narcissist. I was going to be just like her because that's what children do, especially little girls. They want to emulate their mothers. Until I decided I did not want to be like her anymore and sent the monster away. So when I was around 7, I think, we went to my uncle's house for Thanksgiving. And I kid you not, this is exactly what happened. It's going to sound crazy, but this is what happened. My cousin, my 7-year-old cousin, started sexually harassing me and saying really inappropriate things about what he wanted to do to me with his fingers and penis. at 7, okay? And I talked about how my uncle would rent them torture porn films and condition them to see women as objects. And, you know, even at 7 years old, my cousin, he didn't really know me that well, so he didn't understand that this was someone you were related to, and this was a cousin who you're supposed to have more sisterly feelings towards and not have any sexual feelings towards. But because he didn't know me, I was just a random girl, and girls were, in his mind, what he had been trained to believe, were just sex objects. And so, yeah, at 7 years old, I was being sexually harassed by my cousin. And then I stopped it. I went in his room and I broke one of his toys. And I said, if you don't stop bothering me, that's what you're going to get. And then when I was a teenager, I was suicidal. If you want to take a nice stroll down Malice Lane here with me for a minute, I was absolutely, positively suicidal when I was in high school. I had no friends. I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence. Because of the abuse I endured, I believed that no one would like me. Every time someone was looking at me, I would think, oh my God, they're thinking, who is that freak? I was like Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club, is the best way I can describe myself in high school. Weird, dark-haired, artsy girl drawing in the corner, has no friends, doesn't talk to anybody, super shy. But I was actually suicidal. So, November 16th, 1990. Dear Diary, maybe I should kill myself. I'm not kidding. I have razor blades in my room, hidden away. Seriously thinking about doing it. But when I die, I want it to be fast. I don't want it to hurt. And I want it to be my style, you know, not overdosing on drugs or something, or drinking myself to death. That's not my style. Everyone knows it. I want it fast, like drugs, but without having to use drugs or alcohol. The only thing I could do would maybe to throw myself off the roof. You're supposed to faint before you hit the ground, and you're not supposed to feel it, but I don't know. I want to be found in my bedroom, on my bed, or my rug. January 24th, 1991. Dear Diary, my life is a living hell on earth. Last night and the night before, I wanted to kill myself. I have suicide notes and extra sharp razor blades and a knife hidden in my dresser. January 27, 1991. Sometimes I wonder why I just don't kill myself. My life can't get any better. I have no friends. I hate school. I don't like anybody. Nobody likes me. So yeah, that was me at freshman in high school. I had complex post-traumatic stress. Regular post-traumatic stress is the result of one traumatic event. Like you're in the middle of a robbery or a shooting, or you get kidnapped, and it's just this sort of one incident. Or if you look over your entire life, like the timeline of your life, there's this one horrible event that gives you this stress. You know, loud noises trigger you. Anything can like bring back the trauma of the event. That's post-traumatic stress. Complex post-traumatic stress happens in households with children, or even when you're grown up, if you're married to an abuser. It always happens when the stress and the traumatic event is repeated. It's constant, where you're in a home where you don't feel safe, where you're always worried, where you're always afraid. The adrenaline is always going. You never feel safe. You never feel secure. That's complex post-traumatic stress. And for me, I talked about my social anxiety disorder in the last video, but it was beyond just basic social anxiety disorder. I would have panic attacks. If I was in social situations, I was so worried about being judged or being hurt by someone, because I couldn't tell how to pick out the good people, because my mom was so accepting of this monster that it threw off all my judgment about who was a good person and who wasn't. I didn't trust myself to judge and know who was really mean and nasty and who was a good person, and so I was just worried everyone was a bad person because my mom was so accepting of this monster. And so I would get into social situations and it would be like the heart would start pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I would get shortness of breath. That, major post-traumatic stress and social problems because of it. Kindergarten all the way through high school. Nonstop. Every time I had to go, every first day of school, every birthday party that I went to of a kid that I didn't know really well. It was constant anxiety. So I want you to imagine a life map. Okay, just a basic, like if it was a pie chart, all the different areas of your life that are important to you. It's interesting if you make one, if you draw one yourself and you think about all the areas of your life, which areas you find are, you're the most happy with and which areas need work. It's just a very informative project to do on your own, and I suggest you all do it, but this is like a basic one. Okay, this is a very basic one. So you'd have career and money, romance, friendship, health, your home that you're building for yourself, and spirituality. So those would be like the basic life map. So I want to talk about when you're raised by a narcissist, what happens and how it ruins all these areas of your life. Okay, career and money. If you're raised by a narcissist or an enabler of a narcissist, by the time you turn, about 15 years old, you are so beaten down and abused that you have absolutely no confidence or no self-esteem. So let me know in the comments if this has been your experience, but your first job that you start, through every job that you will ever have for the rest of your life, you will expect everyone to hate everything you do. You will expect your boss and your coworker not to appreciate you, not to appreciate anything you do, not to see any talent in you, not to see any ability that you have. You will expect to be overlooked and ignored because that's the way your family treated you, especially if you were the scapegoat. If you're raised in a toxic environment, you grow up, you go out into the workforce, and you try to apply yourself and do the best you can, but you've had it ingrained into your subconscious that you're not good at anything and you're not good enough and you're terrible at anything. I mean, narcissists will criticize the scapegoat child for breathing wrong. If you step to the left, they'll yell at you for not stepping to the right. The way you chew your food. I mean, it can be anything. It can be the most minute details about you that they will pick apart. I mean, even to this day, I can be doing the most nothing thing in the kitchen. I can be chopping onions, and I'll hear my uncle in my head telling me I'm doing it wrong. And at this point, I've gotten to the point where I can just be like, shut up, and it doesn't affect me anymore, but it still pops in because it was years and years of being told that I was shit and I was incapable of doing anything. So if you've been raised by a narcissist, you start your job, you expect everyone to hate everything that you do because that's all you've ever known. You'll also find that you don't go after promotions. You don't go after the career you want because the narcissist and the enablers have conditioned you to think, who the hell are you to try to get anything good for yourself? That's the way you've been treated your whole life. That's the way they've conditioned you since birth. So you don't go after the job you want. You don't go after the promotion you want. You don't go after the money you want. You just assume that you can never do anything because you have been raised to see yourself as completely incapable. So if you're raised by a narcissist or there's one in your family, that area of your life becomes challenging for the rest of your life. All right, let's move on to romance and friendships. If you have been raised by a toxic narcissist, you will think that everyone is a monster. Because if the person who is supposed to love you and take care of you and support you is the one who abused you, if they don't even like you, how can anyone like you? It's like your family is supposed to be your safe place, your foundation. If they don't even like you, how in the world can you possibly expect any stranger that you're going to meet to want to be your friend or want to have a relationship with you? So what you'll find that you'll do is if someone great comes along, you'll just assume that they're not going to want you because you've been conditioned to have no self-esteem and no self-confidence. And so you're either going to sabotage that relationship or you're just not even going to bother trying. There was times where people were, looking at me, even in kindergarten or first grade. I remember there was this girl staring at me. And I did not like the way she was looking at me because I just assumed she had to be thinking something horrible about me because I was trained that I was a piece of shit. So she might have been looking at me and think, oh, I really like her outfit, or I want to play with the toy she's playing with, or I want to be friends with her. But I didn't give it a chance. I just stuck my tongue out at her, and we didn't like each other for the rest of the year. So you're conditioned from birth that no one is going to like you. And so when it comes to romance and friendships, what you're going to do is you're either going to sabotage the relationship, just assume that someone's looking at you because they're thinking, oh God, there's something wrong with that person, they're a freak. You're going to assume that they're looking at you and they're going to think you're a freak because that's what your family has conditioned you to believe about yourself. Another aspect of this is if you've been raised by a narcissist, you tend to be very attracted to narcissists. So you'll bring in people, you'll bring in the wrong people to date over and over and over again because us as the victim, we've been so conditioned that we have no self-esteem. You meet a new narcissist and they seem so confident and you're just going to be drawn to that confidence that they exude. You're going to be drawn to that, confidence that they radiate, the self-esteem that they have, the self-awareness that they have, until you're deep into the relationship and then you find out, oh, this person is exactly like my narcissistic parent. So that is the problem. That is how being raised by a narcissist or having one in your family as a child, how it impacts the friendships you're going to have and the romantic relationships you're going to have. They're both going to fall apart if you don't take the time to heal yourself and really think about what you want in a relationship. We also tend to not think about what we want in a relationship. We've been so beaten down by our families that we just give love and attention to anyone who wants to pay attention to us. The person could be the craziest, most unstable person on the planet, but if they come to us seeking friendship or love, we're going to give it to them because we've been conditioned to only take what we can get, to take the crumbs that people throw us emotionally because we don't deserve love. So that is how it's going to ruin your romantic relationships and ruin your friendships for the rest of your life, unless you make a conscious decision to heal from it. Okay, health. Oh my God. Okay, I've met so many people who were raised by narcissists and the health problems, thyroid diseases, heart problems, me, myself, I have horrible tension in my back and my neck and my shoulders, bad posture, which has led to a lifetime of headaches. The worst case scenario, heart attack and stroke. I mean, I have met so many people, so many different health problems. I mean, back problems, thyroid problems, heart problems. I mean, it affects every area of your life. And if you take the ACEs test, ACEs is Adverse Childhood Experience Test, and my score was a 7. It gives you a whole bunch of different questions about things that you experienced before you were 18 years old that can affect your physical and mental health. If your score is above a 6, it means that 20 years of your life could have been taken off, that it could have been so traumatic that it caused so much stress that it caused you to lose 20 years of your life. Mine was a 7. My ACEs score was a 7. Yet my family still will not admit anything was even remotely wrong in my family. That's another video. So yeah, with your health, your physical health and your mental health, if you have been abused by a narcissist, I suggest you take the ACEs test. Link in the description. When you're raised by a narcissist, you have no place to go to unwind, especially when you're a child. I mean, a lot of times I would, and a lot of people who have experienced this, you go to school and you can't make friends and you're lonely and miserable because you've been so abused. You can't get good grades. You can't thrive in any way because you're constantly in defense mode and you're constantly getting, treated like crap and you're constantly on the defensive. You can't thrive. You can't be good at anything. You can't achieve anything when you're in survival mode all the time. People who thrive at young ages, people who, athletes who started training when they were very young, anybody who has done anything that they started at a very young age was not raised by a narcissist or exposed to a narcissist. They were raised by parents who supported them and allowed them to explore themselves, allowed them to develop their self-esteem, allowed them to feel proud of themselves, allowed them to grow and thrive. When you're raised by a narcissist, you're constantly on the defensive, and I have complex post-traumatic stress from my childhood, and if you have been raised by a narcissist, you probably also have it, or if you were just exposed to one, you probably have it. So your home life as a child was constantly a place that felt unsafe. So as an adult, you find people that are comfortable and familiar, and you create homes and environments that are also toxic and not safe. And on top of that, leading back to money and career, you usually don't have the money to buy a home because you don't believe in yourself, because you can't achieve anything in life unless you have confidence. And so therefore you usually don't get the physical home that you want. You don't get to buy the house that you want. You tend to live in crappy apartments. And in terms of building a home, in terms of love and stability, you tend to pick partners that treat you like crap and grow up and marry narcissists or enablers or other people who are toxic. So yeah, it very much damages your home life. If you come from a toxic home, you will create a toxic home. And the last one is spirituality. A lot of people who are abused as children don't believe that there is a God, because why would they? You know, you've been allowed to be around this person who was a total monster, and they were horrible to you, and you don't believe in anything higher, because how could God allow that to happen to you and all the other members of your family? So yeah, it greatly impacts your spirituality. And on top of that, you have so much stress. You know, you're constantly in survival mode. You're constantly, struggling to make money, to maintain relationships. Every area of your life is a challenge. So how can you possibly make time for anything spiritual? You can't. So there you go. There is how narcissistic abuse can destroy and impact your entire life if you're not careful. You have to admit that something was wrong. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to say, hey, I was an abused child, and this was unacceptable, and I'm leaving. You have to get therapy, find people who understand. You have to talk about it. I'm going to do other videos on healing yourself and healing your subconscious, but that's going to be another video. But yeah, do not allow anyone to say that it wasn't that bad, because it was that bad. Because these people are monsters, and they will ruin your lives. They will ruin every area of your life. So please let me know in the comments below which area of your life was most affected by the abuse. Which area of your life was the most ruined from the abuse. Which area of your life you struggle with now because of the abuse. Thank you guys so much for watching. Future videos will focus more on healing yourself, how to heal your inner child, things that I did to go back in and talk to my inner child and, tell her everything that my mom should have said and do everything that my mom should have done. All right, so thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay strong. You're all survivors. Blessed be.